I've been using the Fujifilm XT5 for 4 months now, and in those 4 months, I took this camera everywhere. Toronto, around Portugal, and to Italy. I've used this camera on a few shoots, including one in a full-day studio session. I've used this as an everyday camera documenting my travels, documenting my life. And I just want to give you an update on the Fujifilm XT5. How is it treating me so far? Has my thoughts changed now that I had 4 months to really get to know this camera? Let's find out. The Fujifilm XT5 is the perfect size for a travel camera. It's small, light, and compact. It does not take up any space at all, and that is something that I value. Traveling to one destination to another, always on the go, always moving from train stations and airports to Ubers and taxis and boats and ferries. I wanted something that wasn't going to be cumbersome to pack. And Europe has a different sets of rules on how much carry-on you can bring, especially if you travel in the smaller airlines here. So you want to pack as light as possible. The XT5 allows me to do that. It does not get in my way at all. And the small form factor is something that I do value a lot. As I was walking around Italy for 3 weeks, I was really happy with the XT5 as my go-to camera. The XT5, maybe 2 lenses are all I really need for that. I would put it on my Peak Design sling bag with 1 prime and 1 zoom, the XF 33mm f4 and the XF 18 to 120mm f4. This was a lot more manageable than bringing something like the Peak Design everyday backpack, the 30-liter one that I carry. It was so damn hot in Rome and it was so damn hot in Naples. I would probably be miserable if I had a big-ass camera backpack to carry around as I explore these cities. Another thing I love about the XT5 is how inconspicuous it looks. Oftentimes people assume this is a cute little toy camera or a vintage film camera. It does not look like a professional camera, which is great. I remember using my Fujifilm X-H2S around the neighborhood here, and I got people blocking their faces here. I kind of felt bad even though it was a public space. I was just trying to get an image of the area. Or when I took out the GFX 100S on a shoot and it made the model nervous. But as soon as I switched to the Fujifilm XS10, I saw her attitude and her demeanor change. So some folks are just aware of big-ass cameras, so having something so unassuming like the XT5 came clutch in this situation. I can get more candid photos when I'm around town because of its stealthy-looking profile. And as far as build quality is concerned, I think it's holding up so far. There are some paint that is wearing off on top of the hot shoe mount and the bottom of the bottom of the back display button right here. You can't see it, but it's right there. And I gotta say that I don't baby my gear. I toss it in my bag and then I toss my camera bag around whenever I'm traveling. So I understand that there is going to be some wear and tear and this is going to occur. That's just the way it is. But if this is all that happened after 4 months, I'll take it. Other than that, it still looks good as new. And another note that people have asked me is the status of my LCD screen. Because I have some reports of the Fujifilm XT5's LCD screen becoming loose after a few months of use, I would like to say that mine is still good. Mine is still nice and tight and it's not loose. And I'm talking about my LCD screen. Okay, we have to talk about the one thing I do appreciate the most about this camera, and that is the battery life. This battery is the GOAT. For what I've been doing, I've been getting by with just one battery. This was apparent when I was traveling around Italy. Every day I would visit a different part of town. I brought this camera out capturing and documenting the city life on and off for 4 to 5 hours every day. I would come back to my hotel room with 2/3 or half a battery left. And mind you, all I use this camera for is to take photos. I don't use this camera for video, so your mileage may vary. But for what I do, I'm very impressed with how this camera's power consumption is. Okay, we have to talk about the overheating. I was out last week taking some sample images for a lens review, and the sun was out shining bright, no cloud coverage. I wasn't in the shade area, and I felt the sun was directly shining on the camera. And the camera did get a bit warm. And also, the yellow temperature warning sign came on for the very first time. It was only around 30 degrees Celsius, and I thought that was peculiar. Whereas when I was in Rome, it was 40 degrees and up, and I was shooting with this camera for the same amount of time, and I didn't get a yellow temperature warning sign at all. I guess the difference was the sun last week was directly shining on the camera and making it warmer. Whereas in Rome, the sun didn't do that to me. I had to go into my menu temperature setting to see what setting it was on. And unbeknownst to me, the auto temperature power setting, I thought I changed this already when I first got it, but I didn't. So I quickly switched it over to a high so I could avoid the XT5 from shutting down due to overheating. So if you haven't already, change that power temperature setting to high. And just be mindful of the sun and you should be fine. Another thing that I like is the EVF. Visiting Italy on a hot, bright summer day, I needed an EVF that was going to help combat the bright sun. and this EVF delivers. It was bright, and it was sharp. And I thought I would have a problem with this EVF since it's not the X-H2S's EVF, but I find it to hold up very well. I have to talk about the X-T5's dynamic range. I don't know how much it improved by from the X-T4 and X-T3 sensor, but I do know there is an improvement. I'm not really into the technical and the nerdy stuff when it comes to this side of the camera, but the dynamic range on the X-T5 is really good, and this was apparent when I was shooting with both the Fujifilm X-S20 and the X-T5 a couple weeks back. When I was switching back and forth, I did notice that I was able to retain more shadow details and highlight details on the X-T5, whereas with the X-S20, I felt that I would lose those highlight details. So yeah, now that I shot with the Fujifilm X-S20, I can fully say that I do like the colors on the X-T5 a bit more. To me, it feels like the photos I take with the X-T5 has a richer color tonality to an image, whereas the X-S20 has more of a subdued look. The colors are a bit more punchy and vibrant, and the skin tones are great. Overall, I'm loving the photos that I've been able to produce with the X-T5. I have to touch on the autofocus just a bit because this is always a talking point. I find the autofocus to be adequate. It's not at Sony's level, but I'm very satisfied with the results I've been getting. The face and eye tracking has been a game changer for me, especially when using the newer lenses with the linear motors inside, such as the XF33mm and the XF23mm f1.4. Two of my favorite lenses out on the market right now. So if you guys want to see a review for those two lenses, you can watch it here somewhere. I have to say there are times where the eye tracking would hit the eyelash instead of the eyeball. Or sometimes they won't get the eye in focus, but they'll get the face in focus instead. But saying that, I do get more keepers than before, from my X-T4 and my X-S10. This is something I can live with, and this is something that I do not complain about because I do know where we came from before. I'm very happy where the Fujifilm is now when it comes to autofocusing. For my needs, I think it's fine and it gets the job done. Okay, enough talking nice about the Fujifilm X-T5. What are some things that I don't like about this camera? The buffer. It's shit. There's no way around this, man. Like, shooting 10 frames on continuous high, you only get like 5 to 6 seconds. That's it. You have to wait for it to clear the buffer before you can shoot again. So shooting sports is out of the question with this camera. So this is where I do feel the most annoyed now that the honeymoon phase is over. I've tried changing the file size of my RAW files to see if it would extend the buffer. I tried the medium 3x2 and the small 3x2 aspect because that's what the large 40 megapixel RAWs is at. And same thing, it starts stuttering around 5 seconds, which is not good in my opinion. I thought I could have extended a little bit more, changing it to a medium size RAW, but that's not the case. So that is something to keep in mind. And I guess when they made this camera, they were just thinking about like the landscape photographers and like the slow photographers, like street photographers, portrait photographers, or like turtle racing photographers. So for people needing that speed and that buffer, your best bet is to look into something like the Fujifilm X-H2S because the X-T5 is not it. I would say for portraits, it's fine. I would have liked to see a better readout speed because again, this sucks. This is the only thing I don't like about the Fujifilm X-T5. And another thing I don't like about the Fujifilm X-T5 is the hand grip. I know guys, I know. Go get a hand grip from a third-party vendor and you should be fine. And to that I say, in this economy? But jokes aside, that's a solution that I need to look into. But after playing with the Fujifilm X-S20 and its hand grip, it would have been nice if Fuji could just extend it out just a bit more for us. They didn't need to give us like an X-S10 grip fully, but they could have just made it extend out just a little bit more, but they didn't. So yeah, the X-T5's grip is mid. So after 4 months, has my views changed about this camera? And the answer is yes, sorta. Don't get me wrong, I still like this camera. The photos are beautiful. The handling experience, beautiful. The lightweight, travel-friendly size, beautiful. The battery life, beautiful. But man, oh boy, the buffer, man, is that buffer. The buffer is like that annoying smartass nephew or niece that you may have that just knows how to get under your skin at the right moment where you just wanna oh nephew. When I was shooting with the X-S20 and the X-T5, the buffer on the X-S20 just kept going and going like the Energizer Bunny, and I was so impressed. And then I switched to the X-T5 and I noticed the buffer stuttered in a matter of seconds and it was holding me back from my flow. Mind you, I was already on a roll, I was already vibing on the shoot, trying to get my creative juices flowing. So I didn't like that. So it was very disruptive using this camera going back and forth from the X-S20 to the X-T5. And every time the buffer did stop, something just ticks in my brain and I just kind of get like this crazy twitchy eye thing going on, and it wasn't healthy. That's about it. There's lots to love about this camera. The aesthetics of this camera, beautiful. It still inspires me to go out and shoot. I love the 40 megapixel sensor, the detailed images that you get from it, the colors, it's all great. But there you have it. That is my 4-month update on the Fujifilm XT5. If you find this video helpful, consider subscribing to my channel where I put out Fujifilm and photography content on this channel. If you're interested in this camera, I'll leave the links to them down in the description below. But what are your thoughts on the XT5? I would love to hear them. Now that the Fujifilm XT5 has been out for several months now, we could say that the honeymoon phase is over. So I would love to hear your thoughts and see if any of you guys changed your tune right after several months has passed. Thanks so much for watching.